This is The Big Breakdown, a long look back at some of the biggest stories we're covering for you at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
You may have seen the YouTube video or the TikTok video or whatever you want to call it, the video of this guy, Jesse Butler. He's the teenager in Oklahoma who is a free man, who in early 2025, Stillwater police and Payne County prosecutors filed 11 felony counts tied to two 16-year-old girls. SA by instrumentation, attempted SA, S battery, and multiple counts of assault and battery by strangulation. One victim was choked to unconsciousness. The other needed neck surgery after doctors said a few more seconds she would have died. That was his idea of a romantic night out with the girl that he supposedly was in a relationship with. Investigators say they even recovered partial phone video consistent with a strangulation during one of the assaults because he wanted to record it. Butler was charged as an adult initially, and then the case pivoted in Stillwater because he was 17 at the time that he destroyed these young girls' lives. The defense then pushed for Oklahoma's Youthful Offender track. It almost sounds youthful. Because that sounds like, this doesn't sound like, until you hear exactly what he did. Does that sound like a youthful offender to you? And guess what? The court in Stillwater granted it. Butler then entered a no contest plea, not a spoken confession, but a plea that the court treats like guilt for sentencing. And the judge suspended a potential decades-long term in favor of 1 year of supervised and rehabilitation under the Office of Juvenile Affairs up to his 19th birthday. If he violates, prison can be imposed, but if he completes it, he walks free. That's the timeline. 11 felonies filed, adult cases, youthful offender reclassification, no contest plea, suspended time. Now the question for us today is, how does the system look at violence that extreme and decide rehabilitation, which doesn't work on sexual offenders, by the way, beats incarceration? And what does it tell us about the culture that protects the right offenders? Retired FBI Special Agent Robin Dreeke, former head of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, is with us to help us kind of break this level of insanity down. Robin, let's start by watching the video for everybody in case someone hasn't seen it. This is him being arrested on his porch and his mother coddling him, which I'm sure she's coddled his whole life, which is part of the reason why he is the monster that he's turned into today. Let's take a look at this. This is what's gotten everyone so incensed.
Well, okay, it's fine. It's not locked or anything, is it? Okay, so can you tell him what you just told me, or?
Yeah, so we're here, we're obviously going to place you under arrest. There's a warrant for your arrest. We're going to take you to the jail. I told your mom that she can contact a bondsman, and you shouldn't be there very long, but there just is a process for paperwork and stuff. But right now you do have to come with us, and I do have to put you in handcuffs, so turn around for me.
You have to put me in handcuffs? You know what it is. So,
Yeah.
I'll get you out. For me? Alright, stay silent. Rick knows about this. Candy's on this. Dad's on his way. We're coming to get you, okay? Stay strong, okay? Say your prayers.
Okay, so he's going to go right to the city Stillwater jail, and if you'll just contact her, then she does this all the time. She knows what to do.
Yep.
Make sure
Okay.
she knows Stillwater Police Department, not county.
Stillwater Police Department.
Yeah.
On Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them know that we're the ones that picked him up.
And when we say we are
Stillwater PD.
Stillwater PD.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way they don't think he went like straight over and he's over at the county.
Awful experience with child.
Okay, now just spread your feet for me.
Nothing on the side.
Let's just
So that's the video that kicked it all off, that really incensed everyone. Now that they're seeing the coddling, the do we need the cuffs? And we know the reality of what he has been charged with, and what he pled to, and what he basically got away with. What the hell did we just watch happen there?
Well, we just watched him taking a few minutes to come out because the mother had to take the friggin' bubble wrap off of him as he walked out the door. We're watching what I call the affluent bubble of invincibility. I just covered another case very similar to this with this Nepo kid kind of thing that's going on, the nepotism these aren't helicopter parents. These are snowplow parents that have wrapped their kids in bubble wrap and with zero guardrails, and they just are managing their kids. Like, I mean, didn't he look like a pet? I mean, she's literally treating him like her little dog that's being taken away to the vet.
Yeah,
because it's that kind of level that she's keeping him at such an infantile level that he's got the accountability of a 5-year-old, for any kind of actions. It just,
and that's a good analogy. That's a good analogy, like a pet, because at the same point, she also seems to be treating him with the same sort of regard you would have for your pet when it goes and humps the dog down the way.
Yes.
It's like, stop, just stop. Come on, let's go home. Let's get some food, because it's a dog. This is a human being.
Yeah, no.
Her son that went and did this to 2 other 16-year-old girls, strangled them, almost one to death, and he wanted to videotape it, because I'm sure he saw it on the porn tube somewhere. And she had, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that really, the first question I asked in my mind when I'm watching this is she's got to know what he did, because she's being arrested. She's not protesting it. And then I always, as you know, and the audience knows, I do this deep empathy things, like put yourself in those shoes so you could actually ascertain best your ability, what your reaction would be in that moment. I'm having a struggle to figure out what my reaction, or my wife's reaction to be if one of our kids was walked out of the house like that, to kind of gauge her reaction, because I'm having a hard time understanding, like you said, her affect is so placid. It's not like she's treating it like not a big deal. Are you sure you have to do this? He just got charged with raping and almost killing 2 girls. Oh my God. So the last thing you'd imagine, okay, so I'd imagine her being a mom and her son's being accused of this. Okay. But there should be, I'm expecting some level of disgust, some level of contempt, some level of shock and awe. I mean, so we're not seeing any emotional affect to her, except they're taking her little pet away. I mean, just isn't that was really what was kind of striking me, is her demeanor was just off of what I expect. I don't know what I would expect, but it wasn't that, and that's why I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it.
I mean, is this something where nobody wants to see the worst in their kids or people in general, and she can't wrap her mind around that this could be true, this must be false, this must be a lie, this must be a this, and she's just all in for her son, and just, I'm there for you no matter what, because all she's still seeing is that little boy from the baseball field wearing the baseball hat that we saw in that initial picture. And that's how she's seeing her kid, and just can't grasp this reality. I mean, maybe that would be a hard reality to grasp, but at the same point, if there's these accusations against your kid, I don't know. It's hard to say what I would be doing in that same situation, but I don't think it would be quite that.
No, so I don't have any data, because I've never seen another child arrested like this in this kind of case, and so I don't have a comparison. The only other kind of comparison we can do our thought experiment on is when you see or a parent or loved one finds out that someone has been accused of committing murder, we've seen that before, or someone has been murdered and you lost someone, the amount of shock and disbelief that enters your mind because you cannot conceptualize that this person is either gone, they're dead, or they committed this horrendous crime. You get massive energy of denials. No way, this couldn't be wrong. You got the wrong guy. I mean, you're expecting some massive pushback and some denial, some distancing. You're expecting those kind of emotional reactions in those types of situations. Again, I haven't seen exactly this, so this is my first data from this type, but I would expect that kind of viral reaction to something that you didn't believe, because what we're seeing here is someone who's accepting the accusation, because she seemed to be saying, okay, this is the way it is. You're being arrested for raping these two girls. So what I mean? Ba-dum. Instead of, what? No way, that's not him. You got the wrong guy. Are you sure? You're being arrested? I mean, so you're not getting the typical pushback I would expect to see. Not saying it's wrong or right. It's not what I expected.
It is. It's an interesting reaction that we're seeing there, because it's not that pushback. You're exactly right. It's not this is ridiculous. It's more like, can I put more bubble wrap on you?
Yeah.
Like how can I make you feel comfortable, in this icky situation that you're going into, and say your prayers. Yeah, say your prayers that you get struck by lightning on the way to prison.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
rape the girls.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he's not going to prison, because in this small town in Clearwater, Oklahoma, well, you know what? Power is everything in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to sports. Community complicity is a big thing, and we see it in a lot of cases in a lot of small towns. Everyone knows someone. How do you think that social web silently pressured the DAs and the judges in this to find compassion when the defendant came from this family that had some connections? I mean, we know the accusations and what they are, and what he pled. I mean, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. But somehow they decided, let's give him another chance, rather than, you're going away for 70 some years, buddy.
Yeah.
It's why? Because they literally are looking the other way in the face of the other two young victims in their community.
There's so many things to this one, Tony. All the research I did, first of all, this is not victim-centered ethics that they're focusing on. They're focusing on perpetrator ethics. How to focus. I mean, look at this. We're not even covering the victims here. This is where the story is the victims, and they're talking about this little baby boy as they're treating him as he was the victim. He's the one getting the counseling. Did you know I could not find where there's any court-ordered or court-authorized or paid for counseling for the girls? Yet he's getting it, and it's actually secret. They're not even disclosing the kind of counseling he's getting. I mean, so look at all the benefits he's getting for being the convicted sex offender.
Yeah.
And he's getting off with the sentence that could have been up to 80 years or 78. I mean, up to 80 years. And with good behavior, I think it would have gone down to maybe 10. And so, okay, you don't throw the full book at him, but they went to the bare minimum. And so, Tony, here's the thing that I found the greatest travesty when I'm looking at this. I stand in line for the greatest on this one. There's so many. Yeah. The judge followed the law. This is the law. So when you want to have those outside observers come in and say and go for overturns or appeal or anything, there's nothing to grab onto that's legal that was done wrong. And that's what is we need new processes here, because I'm sorry, I'm on my rant on this one. The oversight of judges in cases like this, because I then dove into the judge, as you know, because you and I were going back and forth on this so much last night, because you uncover one rock and you're like, wow, the hole was so deep. Now this judge that did the sentencing, first, she has a track record of leniency where she's been accused of being too lenient in the past for people that were local. And talk about local, a lot of times when we think of judges, at least I do when I served in the FBI in New York City and in Norfolk and the FBI headquarters, Quantico, Virginia, Richmond, these were never my hometowns except where I'm at now in Fredericksburg. And you kind of assume that the judges aren't either. Maybe the lawyers are, but judges, no, this judge was a judge here for over 50, well, not a judge, but she was a lawyer and then eventually judge here for 50 years. This is the school she went to. This is where she's educated. This is where her father was a judge. The police department, I looked this up. The police department is only about 70 or 80 sworn officers. So it's a small police department. It's not, and I think the town, is 50 to 60,000. I looked up all these numbers to kind of get a sense for what inspired this judge to give the least amount of sentence for such a heinous, horrendous crime. And that's why. And I looked up, there's no studies done that talks about the biases of judges that are local in cases like this. But here's where there is there's conjecture on, they say, is that judges typically overestimate their objectivity by roughly 80 to 90% in cases just like this. So she thought she didn't need to recuse herself. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is saying, what the friggin' hell?
It's shocking. And the thing is, she did follow the law, but she had a choice. Yeah. And the DA had a choice as well. The DA and the judge didn't have to say, well, let's see what other options we have here. Oh, this youthful offender, he technically qualifies. Yeah, technically. But it doesn't mean you need to apply it here. It's not like he went and stole M&Ms from the Walmart or something. It's not like this is a light crime or something that is victimless or something of that nature. We're talking about essaying two girls and then strangling them. Yeah. One nearly to death, requiring surgery. It's not even negotiable what took place here. This is not a he said, she said. This is a convicted felon that, well, because he was 17 and the countdown's on, less than 365 days from now, you'll technically be an adult. We're gonna go with this one over here. I do not understand that way of thinking, other than, who's the winner here at the end of the day? Other than the felon. This is like, it looks horrible on the judge. It looks horrible on the DA. It looks horrible on the family. It looks horrible on every person. The only winner you have here is the rapist. Yeah. So why? What is going through someone's mind when you don't have to go down that road? It wasn't like, well, according to this, 1 + 2 = 3, and this is the only thing we can charge him with. That's the system. We've seen cases like that where the maximum sentence is X. And you're like, damn, I wish you could do more. And the judge is like, this is the max I can give you. Mm-hmm. This is like, what's the absolute least I can possibly give you for these horrible crimes? It is mind-blowing, and I do not understand where any sort of reason came into play here that this was a good idea. Are they completely clueless to the idea that people outside of Stillwater are going to hear about this and are going to come after them with flames and pitchforks?
I think that's part of the calculus that wasn't part of their calculus, is that
Jesus.
She's got reps of doing it this way. So again, looking at behavior patterns, this sentence fits her pattern of behavior and her arc as a judge. It fit right in there. And to your point, that's the least amount she could have done. And you use a phrase I was actually going to say too. Wasn't a case of he said, she said, of a couple 16 and 17-year-olds out there doing some stuff they shouldn't have done. And did it really happen or not happen? And I've seen this. We've all seen this before.
I get that.
This is actually brutal. We actually had someone that almost died because of strangulation. That is to me, that's the exasperation of this crime, which should at least have done some time somewhere rather than just this is almost like an acquittal and an apology for arresting you and charging you with this, even though you admitted to doing it, or no contest, whatever they say. This gave me such little faith in that system out there or anywhere that the judges have this kind of leeway for a minimum sentence over something so heinous. And I know it's raw with us and our audience as well, just because we've covered the Epstein case so thoroughly and the impact. And the other thing that really bothered me on this one, Tony, was that the prosecutor said because they wanted to spare the girls the trauma or they're being re-traumatized by testifying.
How do you let them decide that?
They said they would. They actually said they wanted to, but they said no, we don't want to re-traumatize you. Ask Virginia, Roberts, who did the whole testifying against Epstein. They wanted to, so it's up to So this is where you're not.
It's not up to the DA to decide that.
Talk to the victims. Talk to the victims, and the victim said no. We want to, but they said no. Oh, it's crazy.
No, we'd rather protect little Jesse here.
Going off the rails.
It is so maddening. It is so utterly maddening because I just feel like that we are in this upside down land where the justice system in so many of these cases it's just consistently going to the side of predatory behavior of these awful men. Because he's 17 years old. He knew what the hell he was doing.
Oh yeah.
This is not. This is something. Once this is his MO. This is how he operates. He will be a rapist forever. He will reoffend. The odds are there. In my opinion, he will reoffend.
Yeah, and I looked at that, because again, I looked at the nooks and crannies and so it's not, and this is why I think the judge is able to do what she did, and it's why the sentencing guidelines are what they were. Believe it or not, I pulled it up. The recidivism rate for someone at that age, at a youthful age like this, with good counseling, it's only, I think, in the teens.
That's bullshit, because there isn't there's not accurate stats on reporting sexual assault.
I know, but that's what they're using. That's what they're using
to
justifying their sentencing. But even that. So this is where I had a problem with that as well. So okay, so let's take the stats that they're reporting for recidivism for the reason why they had the sentencing. So if they say at the low end it's 15 to 17%, recidivism rate for this type of crime from this type of individual, if they've gone through counseling, like I said, so that means the judge is saying, hey, he's only got a 17% chance of doing this again. Whose daughter are you going to let subject to that? Yeah, it means if. It should be. Hey,
Judge, would you like your daughters or grandkids to go on a nice date alone with him? Maybe lock him in a room with him and see what happens?
And so this also. So here's recidivism, I would think, would be lower if the perpetrator, and not just the accused assailant, but the actual convicted one who admitted it, no contest, did it, actually felt that hit a rock bottom, like this was an aha, wake up, humbling moment. But look at him. This wasn't a humbling moment. This wasn't an aha moment. This was someone who got his bubble wrap got taken off as he walked out the door. They bubble wrapped his cuffs on him. They put him in the car, and then he went back home. That's not a moment that changes someone's behavior.
No, I mean, no. It's not, and it won't change the behavior, because someone who has this in them, someone who's going to do this, it's there. That's how they're programmed. It's going to happen again. And here's a clear example of see something, say something, do something, and where the do something part completely failed. We're talking about the Jesse Butler case out of Oklahoma right now in Stillwater. This is, you've probably seen it, the video of him being arrested on the porch steps of his parents' house, mom coddling him, and as Robin said in our first segment, basically, treating it like the pet is being taken away. We're gonna come get you. We're gonna come get you, Junior. What in that video that we watched, in the video of them taking the offender away, this mutant of a human being, the fact that it was just the whole attitude, not only of mom, but of him and the officer. Okay, we're gonna do this to you right now. Okay, and then you do this, you call them, and it's the whole culture seems insane. If this was, I don't know, someone else, if it was someone with a different skin color, maybe in a different city. I don't think it would have been held with such kid gloves. It is utterly shocking to see just how bubble wrapped this whole thing was. Do you think that is a reflection of the greater culture going on here in Stillwater, with the police department, with the judge, with the DA, with the pedestal that we put sports figures in? You're playing on this team, you're the person of this, you're doing that, this can't possibly be true, so we're really going to hand you with kid gloves because we don't want to believe that this shit is actually going on and that you're capable of it.
See how apologetic they looked for having to arrest him for rape?
Yes.
They looked like everyone was so apologetic and sad that they had to arrest him for raping 2 girls. There's another case I covered a couple days ago, and this guy Dalton Janicek in Pennsylvania who mowed down a couple cops horrendously, and he comes from a privileged background. So there's a lot of words I was actually thinking of when I looked at this case, because there's a lot of similarities in that. And one thing we're seeing here in another just amazing example of, again, impulsivity without consequence. And so recidivism is high when you have no consequences for the heinous crime you did. And so his only consequence is he has to go to secret counseling for a year. Okay, so that's motivation to never do it again, right? But here's the other thing too, is his emotional intelligence, as we cover every single week with every single case, is so low. His knowledge of self, 0. His knowledge of and empathy towards others, 0. Problem solving skills, 0. Emotional regulation, 0. All the factors that go into someone's emotional intelligence, which says how highly functioning they can and can be in society or anything else, is bottomed at 0, if negative. So those 5 factors are completely devoid in someone like this. And so that's what's ought to be counseled in there. But we're seeing it nowhere. Oh my gosh.
Do you think he even, just looking at the cluelessness of him on that video, do you think he even understands that he did anything wrong? I don't know that he does, or the consequences of the actions by any means. And leading up to it, I guess now he must, because he's being, he was charged and all that. But do you think leading up to this, when he was actually doing these heinous things to these girls, that it ever crossed his mind that this is another human being that I'm doing this to, no. That there may be consequences to these actions. And if not, why? How did he get that far along in life and that part be completely void of his psyche?
So this is, the great philosopher Goethe once said, you can tell who someone is by who they consort with, and how they're, and again, the nature part of growing up, or the nurture part of growing up in this, is there was no guardrails put on him throughout his life. And when you don't have guardrails, then you don't have to play out the consequences of your actions. Because so here you are, you're 3 or 4 or 5 years old. And if you take a cookie from the cookie jar and you are actually scolded, reprimanded, and punished for taking a cookie without asking permission, or breaking a rule or something, you're given a guardrail and you learn, hey, if I do something that's wrong, here's going to be the consequence. And so the next time, prior to doing something that is a rule or regulation or something you shouldn't be doing at home, your brain starts engaging, what's the consequence for my action? And so the more consequences we have for actions and guardrails and rules and regulations that parents put up, we thrive as a society because there's guardrails. Laws are our guardrails for society, our ethics, our morals, and all that. What we're seeing here play out with kids like this is the fact that there was no guardrails. Because when you have a 0 ability to contemplate the cause and effect and play forward the result of my actions, it shows that they've never done it before. Mm-hmm. And if you've never done it before, it's not that he's genetically and biologically coded without a knowledge of it. We're not born with that knowledge of it. It's something that's imbued in us through our upbringing. And so I researched this term too. Everyone kept saying this, he comes from a good family. So I said, I plugged into my AI, define good family. Yeah. What the hell does that mean? Because good families, nowhere in the definition of good families say they put up guardrails in life about cause and effective behaviors. No, this is, you're seeing a completely entitled person without guardrails, cause and effective behaviors that look completely, I mean, you saw he was waiting when he was let out. He was let out. He didn't take charge. He wasn't pushing back. He was just compliant. You know why? He's been shuttled through life in every aspect. You saw him shuttled out the door. His mother shuttled him out. The cop shuttled him to the car. He was complete. He's a big piece of Play-Doh that was being walked out the door and shoved in a car because he had no idea what to do. He had no idea of anything that's going on because this is impulsivity at its max. I want to feel sexual satisfaction. I want to feel dominance. I want to have control. So I'm going to do this to a female. Boom. Oh, there's consequences for my action? Oh, there can't be consequences. I've never, see, he's not even thinking that because you know why? He's never had consequences for his actions of doing anything bad in the past.
We talk about that. We talk about the offender, and we profile that quite often. But the enablers, and the enablers in this situation would likely be the parents, and whatever culture he's living around. And obviously, this is all just our conjecture on the case and in our opinion. We don't really talk about the enablers all that much. I mean, what's going on there? Why do so many parents wrap these kids up basically in bubble wrap and not want to prepare them for life? They know life is coming. They know the real world is coming. Why are we seeing so many parents? I mean, it's always been helicopter parents. There's always been parents that are overprotective, but this is like a new level of shielding that I don't think we're very used to seeing in such a common place and in such a common scale without any sort of self-awareness to it. Because I don't know that mom in this looks like she has any clue of just how vile she is coming across to the rest of the world as this is taking place. Or, I mean, I'm sure she wasn't realizing, hey, everyone's going to watch this video. But just even to the other officers, even to anybody around, there just seems to be this utter lack of cluelessness. And maybe that's why they're raising a clueless child, because the parents are just as clueless. I don't know. I mean, it does it come down to I just don't want to deal with reality on reality's terms, and I'm just going to try and run out the clock, basically, hope for the best that he sails off into the sunset someday and does his own thing, although this guy's probably going to live in the basement for the rest of his life, considering leaving the house may not be such a great option anymore for him.
Or why would you if your parents make it so comfortable?
Or make it so, exactly. I mean, it's this whole enabling of helplessness and then enabling horrible decisions and never, ever giving consequences out to the people that violate those rules.
I'm going to give it a broad swath on this one, Tony. This is an area I've actually enjoyed talking about for a number of years when I was still teaching in the FBI, and that is generational aspects of this. Okay. And so in general, I'm going to give a generational outlook on how each generation sees the world through their optic and lens. And so I won't go all the way back. We'll start with the baby boomers, roughly born 1945 to 65. This group of people saw the world in very different ways from the experience they had growing up. You know, Kennedy assassination, moon landing, Martin Luther King assassination. And this was a generation of problem solvers, but very me-centered focused. And so when they're raising kids like me, I'm a Gen Xer born in 1968, it made us incredibly independent, because when we were growing up from my Xer, I'm an Xer, hardcore Gen Xer, we were problem solvers because our parents were never home. They're absent. We're a first generation of latchkey kids before the word latchkey kid even came around, because both had to go to the workplace for the first time. Growing up in the 70s, the economics are rough. And so we're out there solving problems ourselves at a very, very young age, going to work at a very young age, dealing with adults in adult situations at a very, very young age. We are a generation of hardcore problem solvers. We saw it through an optic and lens of everyone failing around us, the Challenger explosion, the economic times, oil embargoes, just the things we saw growing up was very different than the boomers and then the millennials after the Xers. And so what happened is Xers, and this, I'm guessing this parent is probably on the cusp of being an Xer, probably an older Xer, is we are a generation of micromanaging ourselves because we think everyone else is an idiot. And so when you think everyone else is an idiot, we take control of our own lives, we take control of all the lives around us. And what happens is that we did very, very well solving our problems because we think our parents are idiots. We think our kids are idiots, and we're going to solve their problems for them too because they're fools. I'm not saying this is exactly it, but when you're talking broad swaths of how generations see the world, this is exactly what happens. So Gen Xers typically micromanage your own lives because we think the world's an idiot. And because we think everyone around us is idiots, we're going to try to micromanage your life as well. When you do that with children without getting them out there, allowing them to get reps in of failure, reps in of something going sideways, reps in of understanding what the guardrails are, this is what you wind up with. You wind up with an unmolded lump of clay because it just hasn't had a chance or to form. And forming of us as human beings comes through experiences, comes through curiosity, being satisfied by making mistakes, by cause and effective behaviors with the relationships, with parents, with everything. And so if someone gets so coddled because, and again, these things are done out of love and caring, not knowing that the effect of coddling someone so much and wrapping them in that bubble wrap to keep them protected because we don't want them to have the same horrendous experiences we did. Yeah, but those horrendous experiences we had growing up forged us into being great problem solvers. You're not going to be a great problem solver unless you actually have reps. And so that's how these things generally happen, is that these kids don't have reps because they're being micromanaged the crap out of until they become adults. And then all of a sudden everyone expects them to go from 0 to 100. Oh, you're 18 years old now? Go out, start solving problems. And that's why we're seeing so many self-radicalized kids, so many kids going down the dark triad because they're going from 0 to 100, from zero problem solving skills to facing life's situations and things. And what do they learn? I'll just go to violence. I'll just go to instant gratification because they don't think it's a consequence for their actions because they've never experienced a consequence in their life yet.
Those formative years, those teen years where you should be learning these sort of things with some bumpers around, which is good. That's why we have them. That's why, you live at home till you're typically 18 or so. And you can make mistakes to a certain extent, but you're making the mistakes. We're taking the making mistakes part out of the equation. It's just, you exist, do anything you want, and the bumpers are here, but we're never going to tell you when you're hitting them. You're just going to just live and then be off with you. And then we're shocked when they are having the mentality of 12-year-olds when they're 22.
Mommy will solve your problem all the time instead of you.
I mean, it's what it feels like. I know I'm painting with a broad brush here too, but it's what it feels like when I'm talking to a 22-year-old these days. It feels like I'm talking to a 12-year-old in terms of maturity. And I look at I was like that at 12, not 20. It's like a whole decade is.
You're already on the radio at that age.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know. I'm an odd duck. I have an odd motor, but the thing is, I could say a good chunk of the kids, that I grew up around, they had a very different mentality at 22 than the 22-year-olds of today. And it has a lot to do, obviously, with that parenting and the bubble wrapping of people. I want to talk for another second about the DA and the judge. And in no way am I accusing them of anything. But I'll say this, as I say it a lot, I don't know anyone that is going to protect a predator or a pedophile other than a predator or a pedophile. And I'm not saying that the DA or the judge is that. But I'm saying, what the hell is going on here then? Because why would you want to protect this? Why on earth would you want to protect what you know took place here? Why are you protecting that person? What is going on in your mind that allows you to think, oh, well, here's a loophole. We're going to go with this youthful offender clause. We see it in situations where people are being trafficked and the trafficker is, protecting the other people. I don't think, I'm not saying that's what's going on here at all, but then what the hell is going on here? Because this just doesn't make any sense. It's not human to want to enable this. It's not human to want to look the other way on something like this. It goes against all decency that a healthy human being would have. The only things that my mind can go to are that, and again, I'm not saying that they are involved in that in any way, shape, or form, or it's I don't know what. Sometimes people look at things going, well, I went through hell too. You can handle it. Or, well, so-and-so was rehabilitated after they robbed the Dairy Queen. I don't know. But I'm racking my brain, and I don't understand why you would enable something like this when you know how dire the consequences are. It's already has 2 lives that are ruined, and they're going to be in therapy and scarred forever and carry this with them. Why are we setting this up for a 3rd and a 4th, or however long it takes until someone stops him?
So now it's a little bit easier putting ourselves, I think, in the judge's mind here and the prosecutor's mind here, because we have an arc of reps. You know, when I looked at the judge's record, the backgrounds, you know, this judge goes on leniency, especially when it comes to youth. And so in the judge's mind, again, pure conjecture, she was doing the right thing. You know, she's given the young youth a second chance, and this is the sentencing guidelines, and I'm following the law. And so in her mind, she's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing from her standpoint. It's hard to imagine what she's thinking about the girls and the victims here, except the prosecutor's telling her, because she's not talking to the victims herself, she's talking to the prosecutor. The prosecutor says we don't want to re-traumatize the girl. So in the judge's mind, she might be thinking, the girl think it's okay. The parent, you know, the prosecutor says they don't want to press for this, and I have a chance to rehabilitate a young youth, and the law says I can. So why don't I go that route? Because I've done it this way before, and then I have 50 years in this town. I know this town. I know this family, or I know families like this, because they have this confirmation bias going in their brain, and so in her mind, I almost guarantee, she's doing completely the righteous things. But what she doesn't have, and this is what the system's failing at here, is a loving critic saying, you're nuts. Because with that, and that's wrong. What is missing from this is that there's no outside force saying, hey, you need to be a little more objective on this. Here is what's going on. You're blinded by how close you are to this case. And I mean, seriously, think about this. What would have taken for her to recuse herself? Because again, if the same sentence had come down, and it had been a judge that had the judge had recused herself, and there's another judge that came from the outside that did this, it'd be a travesty in our minds. But we'd say, well, at least it wasn't the judge's bias that did that. There's something else might be going on. But see what I mean? I was just, why didn't she recuse herself?
You know, a lot of times we look at situations and, you know, because we're trying to put ourselves in the other's shoes, and we have our own prisms to look through, and we have our own situations, and we can go, oh, how would I see this? If it were her kids, if it were the DA's kids that Jesse here nearly strangled to death while he was essaying them, do you think they would have made the same choice? Or because it was someone else's kids?
Great question.
That it, you know... Let's give him another chance. I mean, I'd love to require the DA or the judge to sit down with the victims and explain their reasoning on this, and explain why we think this is a good idea.
You know, going back to the Adelson case and Donna.
Yeah.
You know, I love what the judge said at the sentencing, and in cases we've seen where the judges have done a good job, and that is, there's the remorse factor. You know, when someone is convicted of a crime and you're doing sentencing, one of the things that the judge takes into account is the remorse that's expressed by the perpetrator. No remorse means higher sentence, means you need a bigger humbling moment here. Have we seen any remorse that the judge got to witness that this was that he's entitled to a lesser sentence because he showed contrition? He showed, I made a mistake. I mean, I haven't seen any of that.
Nothing.
Right. So I don't understand it either, because the judge has a lot of discretion based on that very subjective observation of remorse, of contrition, of, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. You know what I mean? Even if that video of him being arrested had showed something of shame, of embarrassment, of looking like he knew he did wrong, or looking like the mother knew he did wrong. No one looks like they accepting that they did something wrong. So that's what was really missing from this entire thing. And I think that's what is probably very inflaming to a lot of the people involved here, especially the parents and the girls involved. I mean, but you're such a great example of, if this had been their daughters, Would they have sentenced the same way?
If this had been my daughter, he'd be dead.
Yeah.
He would be hanging from a tree somewhere in Stillwater.
That. I was thinking about, that given victims' families first actions on things first.
He's a pinata now.
Again, going back to the opening statement that I think is really missing here, victim-centered ethics and victim-centered sentencing. I didn't see any of that here at all. And that's I don't know why. I wish I had answers for this one, Tony, but it just, they're following, and that's what, they're following the law. And that's the problem.
And that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, the system is working as designed. They are following the law. They did have agency. They could have chosen to give him a stricter. Any judge could be like, case dismissed. And then that's not exactly what took place here. But they could have made better choices. This is bad choice on top of bad choice. And I don't know if this is because in so many towns like this, there's this thought process that doesn't like to jive with reality and the rest of the world of, oh, he's just a good boy. He made a mistake. And it's an archaic way of thinking of monsters that do certain things. Yes, there are good boys who do make mistakes. Not this type of mistake. The ones that maybe went and robbed the Dairy Queen because they're poor. The ones that, there are people who make bad choices and can be rehabilitated. This doesn't happen to be one of them.
At any point along the way, did someone say to the girls that listened, do you feel whole? Do you feel there's justice? No one does. I mean, so it's like they were silent. The victims were silenced during this. Their opinion was silenced. It's befuddling.
I'm really curious as to what life is like I've driven through Stillwater. I've been to Stillwater several times. It's not that far from here. I'm really curious as to what the atmosphere is like if little Jesse here decides to go walk into Subway and order a footlong. Are they going to be looking at him like he's a monster? Like, oh my God, or is this a greater expansion of the culture there where it's like, are the girls looked at as the perpetrators here that spoke up? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'd be really curious from anyone in Stillwater who's listening to this as to, you see him at the Walmart or wherever. How are you acting? What is the reaction to someone like that? I'd hope it would be discussed. I'd hope it'd be public shaming. I would be shouting him down. I would make him never want to leave his parents' basement for the rest of his life. Not even to go up and get food. Is where he just kind of gets emaciated and dies down there. That's what my hope and prayer would be for someone like this. But I'm curious. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out.
I'm curious too. Matter of fact, it's funny. Not funny, ironic, when we decided to cover this case, I'd actually already seen that video, like I told you, because I'd already seen it come across my feed on TikTok out of nowhere. So I'd already seen it. Not good for the offender in this. He's very recognizable.
He is. I'm thinking they may have to move. If I don't, but again, I don't know. I mean, I'm so surprised by so many of these cases and the reaction, the public reaction, especially when you get so close to the actual crime, is sometimes very different than the public reaction outside of the ecosystem of the crime. I see it in Wisconsin with the Making a Murderer case. I can't think of his name. Stephen Avery.
Right.
That you leave that ecosystem, there's a very different look on that case, and I don't know. I'm curious. I don't know the answer to that.
And also, a thing to consider also for the sentencing that they let him off on. So everyone kept saying he comes from a good family. Is kind of shocking. Well, for him to do what he did, there's a lot of darkness in there, and there's reps of something that led him down the path to take the action he did that he thought. Remember, everyone always acts in what they think is their own best interest, and he thought for some reason this was in his best interest to do.
And we're not accusing the family of anything. They've never been charged with anything by any means. But at the same point, where did this come from? It's a fair question to ask. Why did he think this was a great... And it might be watching online stuff, you know. I mean, that could come from it too. But here's the deal: maybe this is a good family. I don't know much about them other than I know the dad allegedly worked at OSU, and that's what people say. Good family. Who knows what the fuck that means? And maybe they are, and maybe you really got a bad apple kid here that it's just, you know, a mutant and it's horrible. Also, but if you want to stay a good family, then you better hold Junior accountable. Otherwise, you've just become a pretty shitty family.
Yeah, and using strangulation in these types of cases, it's you know, talking about that as an actual event, it shows a huge need and desire for control, and so this is a huge control maneuver he did.
Yeah, when you bubble wrap the kid and he doesn't have any control because it's just like we were talking, he's kind of be shuffled around from place to place. People are going to have a desire to have control at some point in their lives. And this is obviously not the way to exercise it, but when you have zero self-control and you have no reps on how to deal with it and you have nobody guiding you in any way, shape, or form, this is quite a primal way to act out.
Primal is a great word for it because this was animalistic.
Oh. Glad we solved the world's problems again, Robin.
That's what we do here.
God. Jesse Butler. That's what he looks like right there. If you see him around town in Stillwater, tell him hi.
Give him a shout out.
And give him a shout out. Let him know. Let him know you know. Not saying do anything illegal. Just let him know you know.
But what
let
we
him know you know.
The girls, you know, we got to support the victims. You know, they need to be helped. They need to be cared for. They need to be made whole. That's where all the focus on all these things should be, is these victims have been through so much. And as Jenna Guffrey said, you know, Epstein's main taker downer, I'll call it, you know, she said she was unemployable because of who she was, the background she went through, the trauma she went through. And never she didn't have this chance for justice. And
here's the deal. We were talking about, you know, you see this monster around town at the Costco or whatever. Those girls, those victims, they're now going to be fearful to walk around their own damn town because they're afraid they're going to see this piece of shit somewhere.
Re-traumatized every time they see him.
Every fucking time. And the DA and the judge and mom and everybody there is saying, well, that doesn't matter. Your trauma doesn't matter. We want to give him a second chance. So don't matter that you guys are probably going to have to move out of town now just to avoid seeing this blob of shit. But he deserves that second chance. So
he's getting paid for, court-ordered therapy, and the girls and the families, unless they actually go for restitution in some way, have to pay for it out of their own pocket.
Yeah.
That's justice.
Good times in Stillwater. Praise Jesus.
Good justice.
Your thoughts in the comments section, wherever you're watching us on YouTube, please do that. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of our coverage on this. And we'll keep making sure his name is known. I think every year we should do a little Jesse Butler update so people don't forget his name.
We'll have a list.
Yeah, a little, hey, let's remember Jesse. Hey, Jesse, in case you thought people forgot about you. We're going to do this till I'm dead every year. The Jesse Butler update. I think that'd be great. And we keep still in mom's basement.
And we'll keep it even more positive. We'll remember the victims every year and do even more for them.
I agree. All right. Until next time, for Robin, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
And on this episode, we take you back to Stillwater, Oklahoma. The Jesse Mack Butler case. Jesse Mack Butler charged with 11 felonies, attempted essay, battery, and assault and battery by strangulation. You know, type of things that happen in all teenage relationships. Oh, wait. After attacking two 16-year-old girls. One was choked unconscious. The other needed neck surgery. Doctors said seconds longer and she would have died. Police found a partial phone video of the assault because why not tape the event? He pled no contest. Because he was 17 when it happened, the court granted something called youthful offender status, a fun little thing that they have in Oklahoma. A potential 78-year prison term then became a 1 year of supervision, and people are a little pissed. Today, we're unpacking how this all happened, what it says about the justice system that mistakes privilege for potential. Joining me is defense attorney, former prosecutor Eric Faddis. Eric, as a former prosecutor, when you see medical proof, phone video evidence, 2 victims, one who almost died, according to the doctors. If you're the prosecutor, what's supposed to happen next in a situation like that?
Well, obviously, some alarming circumstances in this case. And as a prosecutor, part of your primary duty is to try and protect the community through the prosecution of these cases. But recently, it's sort of come to light how some prosecutors are handcuffed in their ability to do that because of the age of the offender. And that is really at the forefront in this case.
But there was a choice made here. They didn't have to pull this lever. They did not have to pull the youthful offender lever. It existed as an option, and I understand its principle for existing. Like if you go and rob the subway or something, there's bad things. People do make bad choices when they're young, and there can be rehabilitation. It doesn't seem like it was invented for something like this.
No.
Yeah, Tony, I feel like, again, the rationale behind that, and many states have that. Colorado, where I practice, has something similar. Really, the rationale behind it is that, hey, if there is truly a minor who, engaged in a youthful mistake and something bad happened, they want prosecutors to have the option to treat that person in the juvenile system. But many states have the option, like you said, of especially a 17-year-old prosecuting them as an adult. It's called a reverse transfer hearing in Colorado. I'm sure this state has something commensurate. And so why they didn't go that route in such a case has a lot of people sort of scratching their heads.
I mean, obviously, go ahead, Stacey.
This crime, and it is a crime, what he did seemed very adult-like from kind of his approach to it. He was filming it. He realized, I'm not going to get this on video because she's passed out. Wait till she wakes up and do something else. And I hope I'm not getting too graphic because this just makes my stomach turn. This seems like an adult crime. This isn't some mistake like I jumped over my neighbor's fence, I broke the fence, and then their dog got out and got hit by a car, and all these things happened because of my stupid mistake. That's not what this was. Why aren't people in the justice system more pissed off? And you can tell I'm pretty charged, so I'm going to try to hold it back a little bit. But why didn't other people step up and go, no, we can't do that in this case?
Stacey, good question. It's understandable how some folks are heated over this. Look, if he was charged as an adult, he would have been facing something like 78 years in prison.
Yes.
And now he's looking at a sentence, I think, of around 1 year of supervision. I don't even know if there's any incarceration being imposed.
None.
And you're right. That's really the paradigm through which prosecutors handle these cases was this really an adult behavior or was it the behavior of a minor? And all indications are that this was really an adult act for which some believe adult consequences ought to be imposed.
I don't even call it, it's a monstrous behavior. I don't care what age you are. If you're, obviously to carry out some of this, you have to have a certain, you have to be somewhat of a mature human being physically. But this is something where it's monstrous no matter who does it. We're talking less than 365 days where it would tick over into adult territory and he couldn't qualify for that youthful offender status. Obviously you can't get into the mind of this specific DA or the prosecutor or the judge, but how typically does a prosecutor decide whether to offer a plea in a case like this? And why would one think, oh, this would be applicable here? It just doesn't make any sense from a human standpoint.
Yeah, Tony, when I was in the prosecutor's office, we would look at several factors when these types of cases come in where the perpetrator allegedly is a minor, but they're kind of close to the cusp. You look at of course, the seriousness of the conduct, the egregiousness of the alleged charges. You look at the severity of harm caused. You look at, how the victims are dealing with this and how they're going to have to deal with it for the rest of their lives. And at least when I was a prosecutor, this would be the perfect case to do what's called a reverse transfer hearing in Colorado and charge the individual as an adult such that he would face adult prison consequences. Here, I just can't fathom what rationale they would have had to say, oh no, instead of, protecting the community and putting this person away, we're just going to have them be on what's tantamount to probation. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me, especially with someone who's 17. If he was 12 or something, then that's different. But you're right on the cusp of the technical threshold to be an adult, and it's certainly an adult act.
Don't you guys stand around in the break room? You've got your coffee cup, and you're like, "What are you working on today?" And doesn't this come up? And I'm going to swear here. Doesn't your colleague go, "What the fuck, dude? You can't do that"? I mean, are there discussions behind the scenes about these things, or is it just, nope, we're going to do this because, the father is the former director of the OSU football team or whatever team it was, and he's a prominent individual in the community, so tread lightly. How does this work?
Totally. So yes, those discussions are had. I've been privy to them. And you have kind of a round table and you talk about, hey, should we pursue this person in the juvenile justice system, or is it more appropriate to pursue them in the adult criminal system? You talk about different considerations. Now, the prominence of the defendant or their family is really not a valid consideration on which to make such a decision. But those considerations have arisen during such conversations, sort of in back rooms of prosecutors' offices, and sometimes it's kind of hard to speak out. Sometimes you feel, especially if you're a younger attorney in the office, like you might receive some ridicule or pushback or condemnation for going against the grain in terms of what leadership wants to do.
Do you see that more in smaller communities like this? I mean, Stillwater's only like 50,000 people. The judge has been there basically her whole life. Everybody kind of knows everybody. It's one of those type of communities. Not saying that's a bad thing, but it also can be kind of a toxic thing when it comes to decision making and the idea of second chances or not seeing reality on reality's terms when one of these, one of their own is capable of doing things like this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in these smaller jurisdictions, like you said, everybody knows everybody. And so, there are considerations that sort of seep into that conversation that might not appropriately have seeped into that shouldn't be considered. But, when you're looking at, hey, I know the guy's dad and how is the public going to look at this? Is this going to cause harm to the defendant's family? These sort of questions come up more often in a close-knit rural or smaller community than they would in a large metropolis.
It's asinine. I mean, it really is. I get it happens. I know that this is a reality of it, but at the end of the day, I mean, when you put everything into play here and like, okay, I mean, this son's horrible actions that he did, will it then reflect negatively on the family? Yeah, it will, inevitably. It doesn't mean that the dad, his accolades or whatever he's done makes him a bad person or anything. But yeah, you're going to be looked at a little differently because your kid did these sorts of things. But it makes it even worse if you basically side with the monster, side with your kid who's done these sort of things. And I'm not saying he has. I'm just kind of speaking more generally in situations like this, where you have someone in a community of a certain ilk, of a certain job title, of a certain status, for whatever reason it may be. Oftentimes we're talking about sports, where we are more concerned about, well, how is this going to affect our athletic program
Yep.
versus how is this going to affect these two young women who are 16 who now are going to have to look behind their shoulder every time they walk out into public and walk into the Walmart because they're afraid they're going to see their perpetrator, just bowling around doing whatever he's going to do because he's free after one of them nearly died. It's like we're all this concern because it might affect the score of our teams versus the psychology of the well-being of these young women.
Yeah, I mean, in no statute book that I've ever read does it contain a factor that the prosecutors can consider in terms of, how is this going to affect,
Sure.
the commerce of my small town or something
Yeah.
like that. But you better believe, we all like to think that, hey, everything is objective and above board. They're doing it by the book, and that's just not the case. There are good old boy networks. There are influences that creep into these determinations, and I can't say whether it did in this case, but there's certainly the specter of it when you look at such a disproportionate outcome for, as you said, what appears to be such a monstrous act.
There's no oversight either of like an oversight body that reviews decisions in real time. Could the public pressure change this? Because the public is outraged over this, especially in that area. They are pissed the F off.
You bring up a really important point, Stacey, because there is really not a ton of sort of like supervision of prosecutors exercising their discretion. And, on the one hand, we want them to be able to say, hey, this case is less serious, or this case mandates a different outcome for these reasons than other cases. On the flip side, we don't want prosecutors kind of running amok and doing injustice and considering things that they shouldn't be considering. But when that happens, who do you go to? You can't go to the court. The best the victims' families could have done was gone to the court and say, hey, we don't agree with this plea agreement. And oftentimes the judge will still side with the prosecutor and say, hey, he's the pro, he's the one who's charged with making these determinations. I'm gonna side with him. And then what are the victims' families left to do? There is hardly any recourse when things like this happen, and perhaps there should be.
It's almost you're waiting for the next offense. And then it's, told you so. And that seems...
Tony, you're right. There will be. Think about this monster.
Yeah,
the
Tony,
odds
are
and
there.
I have known people. Yeah, this is not going to be his last rodeo.
Yeah. I mean, I hope to God it is, but in my opinion, I highly doubt it will be. Just if there's no consequences for actions like this. Let's talk about the actual, the way that this went down, choosing no contest. Is this about avoiding civil suits or optics for the judge? Why no contest on something like this?
I am likewise puzzled as to why the judge accepted a no contest plea. Judges typically are not required to accept that. And in Colorado, where I practice, they're extremely rare. And I've seen defendants go to a judge and say, hey, I'm not going to plead guilty. I'm not going to admit my wrongdoing, but I'm going to plead no contest and say that, hey, I can't defend against these charges. Could there be some civil benefit on that potentially, whereby the defendant is saying, "Hey, even though there was a conviction, I never agreed that I did this." Whereas if there's a guilty plea, that's an express admission that they did it. So perhaps they're sort of posturing for that civil suit down the road. But for the prosecutor to offer something so lenient, for the judge to accept not only the lenient outcome but also the no contest plea, really kind of raises some eyebrows. It's just not how things would be done typically.
Yeah, it has raised some eyebrows. That's why I think there's a gazillion people on the court steps still down there. And I'm thinking like, hey, if I had some extra time, I might go for a little drive and join the folks. I
didn't mean to interrupt, Tony, but one of the people in our chat, Robin, said, Tony, I went to the rally yesterday in Stillwater about this case. Thank you for covering this case. So, I think it's got quite the impact.
Good. Please keep sharing this because more people need to be aware of the madness that's going on here. So many times we see things like this happen, and is it more so, well, we know we're going to make some waves and people are going to be upset for a little bit, but then, there'll be another squirrel and they'll move on in a few days or weeks. Is that, obviously this is just conjecture, but do you think that's that's how this is being processed in their minds of, well, we're just gonna, battle down the hatches for a few days, and then this will blow over, and you'll be fine. Or do you think they saw this coming? Do you think they saw the backlash that was going to erupt after a decision like this is made? Or is this new territory for a lot of judges and a lot of DAs, where we're in a kind of a new atmosphere where people get mobilized a hell of a lot quicker than they used to when bad decisions are being made?
Tony, in my appraisal, and I don't know the specific judges or prosecutors involved,
Sure.
not casting any specific aspersions on them, but I can't help but wonder if some of these judges are used to kind of the old way, where you got a good old boys club, and you give somebody a break, you do somebody a favor, and maybe there's a few folks who are upset, but then it kind of piddles out and back to business as usual. But in the modern era, with the access to information, the ability to transmit information throughout your state, throughout your country, throughout the world. So many more people are aware of this. I doubt you and I would be talking about it if it happened 10, 15 years ago and was kind of just swept under the rug. But now, thanks to folks like Robin and other people who are giving significant concern to developments like this, it's not something that is just going to be ignored, whereas in the past, perhaps the judges thought it might be.
Well, and how different is it today, too, where if he essentially, my understanding of it is, if he keeps his nose clean, basically, for the next 365 days, this gets expunged off his record. Like, it's just like it never happened. And that's great, but we don't live in a world anymore where it's just your legal record that follows you around. I really feel like if you're looking from a PR standpoint on this, of everybody thinking of their life going forward and what's the least amount of damage that I'm going to do, had there been some sort of sentence here, and obviously he didn't want to do 78 years, I think he should have, but had there been just something, maybe that they could have come to some sort of agreement, settlement on, maybe a few years, maybe something, not something more than this probably would have never made any sort of headlines. We wouldn't be talking about it. Nobody would be talking about it. But because they went to such an extreme and such a far length, this kid's name will be known for the rest of his life. Anyone who will ever search this guy in Stillwater will find these stories, will see the monstrous actions that took place because they wanted to go down the route of basically no accountability. And I don't think they're seeing the long game here, because this shit on YouTube is going to follow him make a far more impact than somebody going to the courthouse and looking up the records and finding all that. Yes, on a legal standpoint, you'll find that. This is what anyone's going to follow him when he's attempting to date again at some point in his life.
Tony, to that point, I so have to interrupt. Last night, I must have watched 7 or 8 videos on TikToks, excuse me, I'm being old here, where women are like, ladies, look at this picture, and they showed him like different views. If you see this man in public, and moms, if you see that your daughter's dating this man, so they are putting the warnings out there. So social media is doing its job.
So we've gone back to public shaming because our judicial system is not working. So it's like villagers and pitchforks.
That's exactly what it is.
Which can go horribly wrong, too, if you're going after the wrong... And I'm not saying this is the wrong person here, but it can go horribly wrong when all the villagers want to go against somebody that they think is a bad person when, in fact, they're not. Again, that's not what's happening here, but that's the path that we end up going down and the errors that can take place when our system is failing us so greatly.
Yeah, Tony, and that's the hope, right? That there would be some record of this to caution the public against what could be a very serious threat to their safety. But with how this is played out, there's no guarantee that there would be such a record. If he does get the case expunged, there is not going to be a permanent record of him doing this. Usually when expungements happen, the defendant files a motion to seal the records. And then, later on, it's pretty easy to change your name. It's pretty easy to, 5 years from now, look a little different. And there have been defendants in the past who have done that and who have led lives after that that. And then it comes out, 10, 20 years later. Oh, wait, he was the dude who did this. And he sort of fooled everybody for decades. And younger folks in the community who aren't aware of all of this happening in 10 years or so, there might not be those warning signs to be cautious around this person if he plays his cards right, legally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. But and I'm glad he's going to have to go through those sort of hoops to live a normal life if he wants to attempt one. Because if the system's not going to do its job, then society will. And if he can find his way to work his way around it, and predators tend to find their ways of manipulating systems, so he probably will change his name, move somewhere else, make himself look different, and hopefully will behave and not do horrible shit to other human beings.
Right.
And if that's the case, then good. But if it's exactly what you said, oh my God, he's that guy. Yeah. But at least there's those hoops. At least there's those barriers he's going to have to go through to try and live a normal life. Because yes, it can be expunged, but you're not going to expunge YouTube. You're not going to expunge TikTok. You're not going to expunge all of the stories and the literally thousands of people by the day that are now seeing this idiot's picture and letting the world know what his name is. That's always going to be there when you look it up. And just changing your name also. I think that's another one of those things where we look today and we go, well, name changes. That's something you could do to change the identity. Visual identification is becoming quite a thing when it comes to search recognition as well. So you can change your lookup. That's going to be probably his best bet. Change your lookup significantly because you can start searching things just based on facial features, and you could find the guy. So that's going to be, it's going to be more and more difficult, I guess is my point, for people like him to hide behind some sort of a mask. And thank goodness when the systems and the tools that are at play are able to work for the benefit of the victims and not the predators.
Can you imagine if your daughter brought this kid home?
He'd be dead.
Well, great. We'd all be out of a job.
Yeah, we would. I'd be in prison and everybody would be out of a job.
Yeah. But yeah, people need to know. I mean, it's almost like putting his face on a milk carton like we used to do back in the 80s when somebody was missing. Like, have you seen this predator? He's out there, Obviously, you can't do that. But yeah, TikTok is kind of taken over. Even in crows will warn other crows of danger. So we're kind of going back to the animal system and warning each other of it. I actually had a friend send me one of those videos. She didn't even know we were covering this. So it's out there. And I'm in Wisconsin, so I'm nowhere near this guy.
Yeah. And Stacey, what are we going to do when he's back in the community in like a year? Look, people in who, if these allegations are completely true and it appears he's been convicted, so this is extreme behavior, usually necessitating years, if not decades, in prison, during which sometimes there are reform measures, there are treatment, there's therapy that can be had. We're talking about 1 year of supervision for a 17-year-old. That is in no way going to be sufficient to address the issues that gave rise to these monstrous SA behaviors against minors. And so, 1 year from now, the system is just not equipped in that state to adequately address and remedy and try to reform this person's issues that cause them to act this way. And I just don't see any sort of assurances or peace of mind, 365 days from now. Not a lot can change in that period of time.
Yeah.
Do we need to have less acceptance of rehabilitation in our system? I mean, I know it's a lovely idea and it feels good to think it. Oh, people can be fixed. Do we need to accept as a whole and beat it into society's head as a whole that there are just some people and there's certain behaviors of some people that, if demonstrated, they're not fixable. They're just not. You're never going to see someone like this who's strangling 16-year-olds while they're essaying them. They're not going to be a good human being. Nothing good is going to come of this. And other horrible behavior, rather than thinking that there is some sort of rehabilitation for people like this. Do we just need to accept, nope, looks like you proved your ability to do this. We don't need you anymore. And it doesn't mean, you can't go execute him. But, I mean, some countries do. Florida now has the ability in some cases. But just an acceptance of you need to be in a cage because you've forfeited your rights out here for what you've done to other human beings.
But that's what the 78 years would have done for him.
Yes, it would have. But just across the board, certain age going forward, like if you're 16 plus or whatever, 15 plus, and you've done horrible shit like this and you're convicted of it and it's just, there's no questioning it. It's literally on video. Should we have some just stricter penalties? The example would be the California's, 3 strikes type thing, where it's just certain laws being broken, certain crimes being committed. There's just zero tolerance for it, period.
Tony, there are, of course, proponents of rehabilitation, and they want to aspire to reform these folks, to address the issues that gave rise to the behavior and hopefully correct them such that there would not be any reoffending. On the other hand, as sort of rosy and as that notion might be, it hasn't always played out that way. And you look at in the sex offender context, sadly, even with substantial treatment in Colorado, the folks who are convicted of that have to go through all sorts of therapies and assessments and ongoing supervision for years and years. And unfortunately, I've just seen a lot of reoffending within that context. Are those people incorrigible? Can they even be reformed? I don't know the answer to that, but I think only falling on one side because it feels good is not the right approach.
No, and that's what I think the problem with our society is the fact that we want to go with what feels good, not what is real. And the answer to that question is no. These people can't be rehabilitated. It's in them.
I do have a question. Eric, what do you think the protesting is going to do? Does it do anything? Could it do anything? So we've got hundreds of people on the I guess, steps of the courthouse with signs and chanting and pissed off. Does that do anything?
I think yes and no. No, in the sense that we are kind of past the point of no return on the state prosecution. There has been a plea that's been entered. It's been accepted, my understanding anyway. And my understanding is that the sentence is imposed or will imminently be imposed of supervision. On the other hand, we've seen sort of social pressure result in sometimes the FBI get involved. Sometimes federal authorities will investigate. They'll investigate not only the underlying case, but sometimes they'll investigate the prosecution of it, what decisions were made. Sometimes they'll investigate the court system and say, hey, do we have a larger systemic issue that is of federal import? And so, could it trigger some sort of federal involvement? Could that result? I don't know precisely if these allegations could even qualify for federal charges, but I think that it's not off the table. And there can be a federal prosecution even after a state prosecution that was successful. So there are some results that can happen from this. And I think we need to continue encouraging the public to do it.
I think a lot of obviously that would be lovely, but if we, like you said, like if we're after, past the point of no return on some of that, the public pressure here on this judge, I think that's what a lot of the people out in that in front of that courthouse are there for. Obviously, the judge is an elected position. I think the idea with a lot of them is, let's ask this judge to step down. Let's ask this judge to say your time is up and resign and be done with it. Obviously, you can't necessarily go in and fire a judge, but what could be done from a community standpoint if they're sick of a certain judge making horrible decision after horrible decision? Obviously, there's elections and things of that nature, but beyond that, what is the recourse for a community that is irate at a judge that said, yeah, this is okay, we're going to go down this road?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, in many jurisdictions, judges are elected, as are prosecutors. And so there can be some political pressure in terms of a changing of the guard during the next election, even during a term. And even when the judge might not be elected, you can still, it's essentially like bringing a vote of no confidence. Now, you have to get political will behind it. You have to usually get it on the ballot. But that's something that can be done. But it's also kind of a warning to these authority figures that, hey, look, if you guys step out of line, you're doing something inconsistent with the people's will, we're going to let you know about it. And now with the emergence of social media, we're going to let the world know about it. And that can function as a disincentive for these authorities when the next case comes around. Now, that doesn't do substantial justice to the victims in this case, which is a tragedy, but there are future positive consequences that can result from bringing this kind of public pressure.
Well, there's a lot of public pressure. We just had another comment from Robin, who is from this area. The Stillwater School Board sent out an email: if kids left school, it would be an unexcused absence. The students walked out at noon and joined this rally. So
Good.
The young people are pissed. Yeah.
Yeah, good, and they should be, and
Yes, they
everyone
should.
should be, and yeah, these idiotic, powerful people that make such horrible choices need to be held to account.
Yep.
And this is going on everywhere. These absolute horrible decisions that are being made. Good. Keep letting your voice be heard and keep protesting this, because these people need to go. This judge needs to go. This DA needs to go. This monster needs to be in prison. Like we said, maybe that's beyond the point of repair at this point. But if you're going to be part of the problem, if you're going to protect predators, you too are a predator. Maybe not
What's
in the
your
direct
saying?
sense. Maybe not in the direct sense that you were the one that was choking out the 16-year-old, but you were just as good as standing there holding that camera. If you're allowing this to go on. And
Tony,
and
what's your
that's the
big
reality.
saying that you've been saying all along?
Yeah, it's I don't know anyone that protects predators other than predators. I don't
there
know
you
anyone
go.
that protects pedophiles other than pedophiles. It's just, it doesn't exist in human nature, in humanity. It doesn't, unless that is your MO. Unless you're just an idiot and you don't know what the hell you're doing. So it's one of the two. You're an idiot or you're part of that ecosystem. So.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.